So thank you to Dylan and Halfstack for having me again this year. Appreciate it. Thank you, sponsors. Without the sponsors, these kind of events wouldn't happen. And thank you, everybody who's in attendance, because I have nobody to talk to if you're not here. So, dad jokes. Which way did the programmer go? He went that way. Where does a JavaScript engineer do their dishes? I thought I heard it. In a sink. In a sink. All right, a little bit about me. Stuffing my face with a lobster roll in this picture. I am a web developer, former chef, accessibility engineer. I do dabble in the W3C that was mentioned earlier. It's been a little while, a few years actually, doing a lot of work on the web content accessibility guidelines that were mentioned. And a lot of other subgroups, Low Vision Task Force, the technical part of accessibility, all the rules behind accessibility guidelines and success criteria. I'm originally from Portland, Maine, which explains the lobster rolls and lobster and the lobster stickers. You can get your accessibility lobster sticker. Just see me after. And I currently live in the area now. I decided to ditch winter and head for the hills, or in this case, the desert. And ask me about lobster rolls. They're the best. A little bit about how I broke into tech. That cute little guy there, unbeknownst to him, thought he'd be on the cover of GQ one day. But instead, his parents bought a Commodore 64 computer. Now, granted, I had used other computers before then, which again predates me, but with that Commodore 64, those books right there on the bottom right, how many of you remember those books? A few of you? I ended up writing those books in BASIC, putting them on 5 1/4-inch floppy disks, and selling them to my friends at school for $20 a pop. Now, granted, they were getting 12 of those discs, but they were an instant hit. The little entrepreneur in me. And now look at me, Ma. I'm speaking in front of people. So I talk about accessibility. I talk about the importance of accessibility, and I talk about the importance of making everything digitally that we do accessible. This is very important to me. How many of you have family members or friends who have a disability? Okay, a few of you. We probably all do. Everybody's hands probably should be raised because we have those hidden disabilities that were also spoken about. So a little bit about me and my journey, which is the basis for this talk. I am burnt out. 25 years in the accessibility industry and the web industry has burnt me out. Namely, the past 4 years where I have been doing accessibility audits non-stop. And that will burn a person out quickly. And then there's the social media aspect. Now, part of my advocacy is to highlight and to talk about accessibility and leveling the playing field for people with disabilities. And that's taking it to Twitter, and I'll always call it Twitter. LinkedIn, and you can find me on those two platforms. I do dabble in Mastodon, but it's not my cup of tea. And Facebook is just, hey, family members, how are you? I'm still alive, are you? So I'm burnt out. And this represents how many times I've been burnt out probably in 25 years of doing this. Because the number one factor is over these 25 years, and it's not an indictment on the people that I try to advocate to, for the people I advocate for, but repeating the same things over and over and over again, the Groundhog Day, if you will, of accessibility. I wake up, I go online, somebody doesn't have alt text on their image on Twitter. I wake up, I go online, I'm using a form that doesn't have sufficient color contrast. I wake up, I go online to fill out another form. They don't have focus indicators as I traverse the page or the form with the keyboard. You get the drift. So it took me approximately 24.5 years to finally recognize the signs. I would have added the GIF here, but I will pull a quote from the movie The Green Mile. How many of you have seen that movie? Okay. I'm tired, boss. That's me. I'm tired. So I've wound my way into other avenues, other ways to keep me mainly preoccupied with not going stir crazy or have that cabin fever like I used to have during the winters in New England. So I have to keep busy. That's just the person in me. Whether it's, been what I've been doing the last 25 years, or whether it's been doing side projects, or whether I just flip the computer on and I go online and I play a game, have to keep busy. I'm constantly in motion. This has been the story of my life for the past probably 10 years. The decision to leave tech. Why? There is not only the fatigue, the burnout, and I never would wish burnout on anybody. How many of you have been burnt out? A few. Yeah, you know the feeling. It takes a long time to recover. When I was younger, and I was talking about this earlier, I'd bounce back in a couple weeks. I'm fine. I'll be fine. It's just a passing phase. But not really. Like this last time, I was doing auditing. I wasn't touching any code at all. Audit after audit after audit. Now I'm going through and I'm doing automatic accessibility auditing with automated tools. I'm doing manual auditing with keyboard, screen reader, and other tools. But it still was over and over and over. I might look at a line of code here and there. But other than that, it was just auditing. My coding skills deteriorated. I got rusty. I finally took a very much needed long break. And I said to myself, let's learn something. So I got back into Angular. I went into dip my toes into Vue. I got back into React. And I just couldn't do it. I had the skills. I've had those skills since I first picked up. We used to have way back in the day, for all you younger folks, magazines that have code in them. I don't know if we have those now. I've not seen them for quite a long time. But I used to pick up those magazines, buy those magazines, take it home, code whatever was in it, or run that program on my computer, and have a fun time doing that. That fueled my fire. That fueled my passion. I don't have that passion. I couldn't find that passion. I was searching for it. I just couldn't find it. So I decided there has to be some change. People are afraid of change. Let's face it. And how many of you, and you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you embrace change? A few of you, not everybody. That's okay. Because I never wanted to embrace change. I always wanted things to stay the same, right? I'm happy where I am. I'm happy at the status quo. Well, now, these days, I embrace change. Whether that is me going back to being a chef, which this 53-year-old body would never be able to do now, when I was doing it in my 20s. Whether it's trying to be a full-time streamer on Twitch, playing games, and for a while there doing code and having accessibility office hours on stream, finding something that was a change from doing that auditing, doing that repetitive behavior over and over and over again. So finally I woke up and I said, and again, with the Groundhog Day theme, waking up, looking at my clock, getting up, going to my office. Oh, I got to do another audit today. It was time for a change. I like this quote from Helen Keller, and it struck a chord. A bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. Well, I had been failing to make that turn for 24 plus years. Recently, I've learned how to move that steering wheel to the left or the right. To the left if you're a NASCAR fan. So I'm looking for a new path, trying to discover a new path. And as much as I want to cling to the hope that tech will still have this guy in tech, there's some, I'll put it this way. How many of you have been looking for work at one time or another, and you pump out those resumes, you send out those resumes, and whether, no matter how we have the outlook on what hiring is today, it sucks. How many of you have gotten rejection letters over and over and over again? A few of you, yeah. It gets tiring. It wears on your morale, and it kind of gets me into a depressed mood, like, this accessibility company, 3 of them, mind you, didn't want me. What am I going to do? What's next? So finding a new path. Again, whether that's streaming, whether that's streaming, learning how to code, building in public, learning in public, right? Whether that's me playing a game, sitting there and just enjoying myself and having people come in and chat. It can go anywhere, I could go out and find a job working at a farmer's market, selling beets like Dwight Schrute, or, bread, radishes, yes, cabbage. I like all that stuff. Coleslaw is great. Which brings me to the value of prior experience. I couldn't do what I did in tech if I didn't have that restaurant job. And here's why. I led a kitchen brigade, right? I led people. I directed them where their stations were, what to do, timing, ingredients. transferred over into tech and leading teams in tech. Here's what you do. Here's how we make this accessible. Let's talk about accessibility before the design phase, because let's face it, and if there's any designers in here, I don't mean this as a slight, but designers do not design accessible experiences. It's been a rarity to find a design that's been accessible. This, as you can see, that is not me, by the way. That is somebody else. That's a stock photo. I cooked over an open flame for many, many years, wore down my body, among other things. Kitchen work is not the easiest. Tech was my next move. Now I get to give talks in a lobster costume at a holiday Halloween themed event. And it's been a wild ride. So anybody can come from any background into tech. And they can do the tech if they learn the tech, right? I've met a ton of people that have done that. I've even openly said this on LinkedIn. How can a company overlook somebody who's had years of experience leading a team, but when that person applies for that team, they need, I don't know, let's just say, React's been around over a dozen years. You need 24 years of React. Is an entry-level job, but you need 6 years of Vue. I won't go into that. I'll just say the wrong people are doing the hiring, or they're very uneducated. Leading teams, right? We are all leaders. We all have it in us. And I had to reach deep down and find that. And the last team I led was a great bunch of people, but it just didn't work out and we parted ways. And I'll be very honest with you. The suggestions I was making for an accessible e-commerce site were not taken into consideration. And it's like rolling a boulder up a mountain. And that's something I could not do it. And it's okay to walk away. I walked away from a 6-figure salary. I just said I had enough. So now what? I mean, I've broken that string of getting up in the morning and going, I have to do another audit. I don't know what's up. I don't know what the next move is, to be honest with you. But that's the challenge. The challenge is, what are you going to do next? What's your plan B? What's your plan C? D through Z, right? So I turned back to this quote from a few years ago. And if you're familiar with college basketball back in the day, Jim Valvano was a coach. He had cancer. He passed away, sadly. But he won a Lifetime Achievement ESPY at the ESPN Awards. This is what one of the quotes that he said. To me, there are 3 things everyone should do every day. Number 1 is to laugh. Number 2 is to think. Spend some time in thought. Number 3, you should have your emotions move you to tears. If you laugh, think, and cry, that's a heck of a day. It's like, yeah, wow, that is a heck of a day. Just reading that quote makes me tired and I want a nap. But I added on something at the end. And that's learn something new every day. So when I go speak at conferences, I will walk into somebody's talk that I have no idea about. Whether it's, I don't know, AI, for instance, Terraform, Blazor, right? .NET, which I dabbled in .NET a little bit myself, but I don't know anything about it, right? Hardly. Learn something new every day. And then that made me think. Again, try not to overthink though. Learn something new every day. And that's why I started streaming. Building in public, learning in public. You can go on, you can create a Twitch channel, and you can do the same exact thing. You can do it with your laptop and your MacBook and a cheap microphone. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars like we see some of these people do who are content creators full time. So learn something new every day. So final thoughts. I don't know how much time I have left, but I do have some final thoughts. And it's about accessibility, of course. Of course, I had to throw that in here, right? The power of the web and its universality is in its universality. Access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential aspect. That's from the guy that created the internet. And 99% of the internet is inaccessible. Like the talk previous, my talk is inaccessible. I don't have captions. I don't have somebody doing sign language in case somebody needed a sign language interpreter. So my list is exactly the same, right? I came up with this one because I wanted to feel like, I had some purpose. It's actually a play on somebody else's quote that I heard at a conference. Accessibility is a right, not a privilege. The internet was not created for guys that look like me. Period. Full stop. Okay? It was made for everybody. Especially people with disabilities. So when we build something, anything, please remember the people on the other side of the glass. All of them. And I like to throw this in there. And if this is your name, I apologize beforehand, but no, Chad, we are not shipping your computer. Just because it works on your computer doesn't mean it works on everybody's. And I want you to ask this question to yourself before every project, before you put one finger on that keyboard to start your day, because I do this every day still. And I've done this for 20 some odd years now. I've asked myself this question: who do I want to exclude today? And hopefully the answer is nobody. Correct. Thank you. Nobody. We don't want to exclude everyone because, and I'll relay a short story real quick here. I was at a conference recently. A disabled developer was there. Brilliant person. Works for NASA, right? And then I heard somebody speaking in the hallway track. I didn't know there were such things as disabled developers. And I'm like, phew. Anybody can be a developer because we can all learn. And hopefully that person learned that day. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. Wait, no, that's the wrong one. Yes, there is such thing as a disabled developer. There are lots of them. As a matter of fact, the developer community is made up of a lot of people with a disability, myself included. Migraine headaches. When they hit, don't they? I have to go into a room, a dark room, take the meds that I take, and I'm absolutely, I'm out for the day. So with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you again, Dylan. Thank you again, Half Stack. Thank you to the sponsors. Thank you to all of you for attending today and listening to me prattle on for a little bit. I appreciate it. You can find me on, I was going to say X, but Twitter, X, or LinkedIn, Todd Libby, and I have a little lobster emoji next to my name to weed out the bots. So you can find me there. Thank you.